Okie dokie.
Okay, so you're on.
Yep.
Okay, you're the interviewer person. I'm just a smart guy, just trying to explain things to people.
I think we should talk about.
And it has to be something that you know at least just a little bit about, so that you can explain it to me if it's something that I don't know about, so that we can develop an
Just
opinion together.
basic. Uh, our basic views on
So ideology,
the quality of life
quality of life.
for animals.
Okay, but first let's talk about quality for life for humans. Okay, so quality of life, like that is the defining point between a person with a good life or a bad life, right? So that's the way it functions. And actually, we looked that up, and I'm not going to go into it, but yeah, if you look up the top countries with the highest quality of life, you're going to come up with all the Bernie Sanders countries, and then you're going to come up with America. I think they're at the bottom, or like fourth.
We're near the near.
We're fourth. We're the fourth out of the five, right?
Yeah.
Or something, or it's something. They're all Bernie Sanders countries. You know, people that agree with this political philosophy, right? And I'm not saying that our standard of living is extraordinarily low. I'm just saying if you look at it from a historical point of view, so the standard of living used to be higher than it is now, right? So the standard of living in all those in all those almost all those other countries is higher than ours, right? So what are they doing different? Well, when you look at standard of living, you have to look at healthcare, education, job security. You have to look at equality of, you know, equality, just general equality. So civil rights, across the board. Because say like you have a few people that are doing really really good, and then you have a bunch of other people that are doing really bad. That's going to bring down their standard of living because you're looking at it per capita, like everybody together as a whole. But actually, per capita only has to do with GDP, and GDP per capita. GDP per capita in all those other countries is higher than ours. Might be about the same, but if you look at Norway, it's almost twice as much. Like ours is like 50 something, theirs is 90 something. That's GDP per capita. So that means that our middle class, like we just talked about, like it's about 50,000, right? Because that's our GDP per capita. So when you look at GDP per capita, you're looking at like say in a perfect world, given the amount of money we have, how much money would everybody have? And that's how much money everybody would have. So that's how you come up with the middle, right? So you wanted to talk about like equality for animals.
Yes.
Okay, so you have the animals. So you have the domesticated animals, and then you have wild animals, right? So you want to talk about equality for domesticated animals, or wild animals, or animals just in general?
Animals in general.
In general, okay. So then you would have to say, okay. So when it comes to all this stuff that like Bernie Sanders supports, and all the stuff MLK supports, and all this stuff, any reasonable good human being, so like one not of the dark side. So you have like smart people on good side, and the bad side, right? So that's the like light and the dark, right? So there's like the Empire, and then there's a rebel, and I'm a fucking rebel, and then you have like Empire, and it's like Ted Cruz, and he's creepy, right? So you have okay, okay, so that's weird. Um, okay, so domesticated animals are animals that we've like pretty much made. So you have animals that don't exist in the real world. Like, how long do you think what's a really stupid like a bulldog? How long do you think a bulldog would last in the real world? I think a rat could kill it. Like as long as you don't get bit, you're okay. Like there's just some animals that just aren't natural, right? They do certain things and it's cool, but then you have some animals that are just built just purely for decoration. Like you have all those little toy dogs.
Like chihuahuas.
Okay. Well, a chihuahua is not a dog, so it's not
Oh.
entered into the dog. It's so chihuahua is a rodent that resembles a lot of dog qualities. That's also why chihuahuas are much more intelligent than dogs, because dogs actually aren't that smart. So that's cool. These are genetically modified biological organisms, right? But they still have rights. Why? Because they're sentient beings. I mean, if you take like the little toy dog, like the little Japanese, like it's just this like weird little rodent with long hair, right? I don't remember its name. And I were to like flick its nose really hard, and I made its eyes pop out, that would be fucking horrible, right?
Right.
So just because it's genetically modified, just because it's something that you made, it has a central nervous system, it has a consciousness, So therefore, it has feelings. Therefore, it has rights, right?
Right.
If I walk up to you and I punch you in the face, is that cool?
No.
No, because you're a sentient being that has feelings, that has a consciousness, and you're supposed to be nice to things and good to things unless you have a reason not to be. And you have to have a pretty good reason, and everybody should agree. Because if everybody else doesn't agree, you're probably fucking stupid. And you're probably making a bad decision because you shouldn't go up to people and hit them. So we talked about domesticated animals, so they have feelings, even though they're really, really weird and don't exist in nature. And we pretty much have dominion over them, right? They still have rights, and we should treat them with respect. That's why if like someone abuses a dog in American society, they get like a ticket or a fine or something, right? And I remember on Animal Planet they had like the dog police or something, right?
Yes.
Okay. So we've already legislated that these animals have rights,
Right.
So
there's a certain amount of there's a certain degree where they can be held accountable for harm they cause animals. So it's not like
So it's legislated that you be nice to the animal, right?
right.
So domesticated animals for right now are okay.
They have some rights.
All right. So as this conversation is progressing, we've determined that domesticated animals at least have some rights.
Yes.
Okay. So let's go to a population that has no rights. Would you like to?
Yes.
Okay. So there's animals that aren't domesticated, right? And there's
Correct.
some animals that are domesticated that they're not genetically modified, right? So there's like some animals that exist in nature that people keep. Like there's some rich dumbass. I assume he's a black rapper. I don't know. Probably because of the Scarface thing. But
There's
some
people
guy
who
that has
have
a
tigers.
baby tiger.
Yes.
Yeah, has a baby tiger.
And Michael Jackson had a whole bunch of animals that
That's
his
another really
thing.
creepy guy. Okay.
But yes, people
Well,
have
not that the guy that has a tiger
Right.
is creepy. It's just that it's kind of weird that he has a tiger.
right, and
It's
and
weird to have an animal that can kill you.
and so
That's
there
kinda
are there
weird.
are people who have the crocodiles and the alligators in their bathtubs
Okay.
because they collect them or they want them.
Mm-hmm.
And there's people who have
Okay.
those type of animals.
Okay, so we've already gone over domesticated animals, and some of them aren't altered because apparently people own tigers,
Yes.
and a tiger will kill you. Don't ever. I don't know. I felt the need to look at the camera for that. Like, don't ever get a tiger. You don't ever want to own something that's stronger than you. You want to own something that's weaker than you, just so it can't kill you. And I mean, you can apply that to business too. Like, you don't employ someone that'll kill you. That's why you don't hire serial killers. That's cool. But you know what?
Yeah, you probably shouldn't get a gorilla.
You probably shouldn't get a gorilla. And I actually had a serial killer that worked for me one time, and he actually, these two guys were bitching about me, and he said, I'll kill him for $100. If you give me $100, I'll kill him. That was one of my employees. And I tried really hard to get him fired. Yeah, I think he did get fired. I don't care about him. Whatever. He kidnapped people, and he was caught because he was transporting the bodies, and they were in the trunk of his car, and he, I guess, stopped for a soda. He was like, hey, I'm like trafficking humans in the trunk of my car. I'm gonna pull over for a minute, park, go get a snack. I guess people heard them like banging and screaming and yelling, and they were like, oh, there's bodies. Oh, that guy was driving the car. He's arrested. And then he works at Heldenfeld's. Oh, yeah, I said Heldenfeld's. Ha! Fuck Heldenfeld's. Jesus, talk about civil rights, man. God, they don't give a fuck. All right, whatever. So we're now, so we're moving past, so we're taking like, you got the entire animal population. And there's two parts. There's domesticated, so that's the livestock, that's dogs, cats, everything that's within our control that we get some benefit or some kind of social interaction, right? Because we actually socialize with animals. So that means that we identify with at least some of them as one of us, right? Because your little puppy dog that you love so much, it understands you and you understand it. So there's a sense of communion. So when you have a sense of communion between two creatures, right? Then you have a relationship, right?
Yes.
Yes, that's cool. That's cool that some humans have that connection.
I don't know why we can't have that relationship with
With what?
like animals at the zoo.
All right, so you have domesticated and you have wild animals, and apparently she just brought the animals in between, right? Kind of like the slave animals, the ones that exist for our entertainment, and life's really, really bad for them. And we made a video earlier that you fucked up, that brought you to tears and me to tears. I was crying like a little bitch, right? Just thinking about, for a moment, we were both together able to sympathize with animals as equals, and it was horrible. Okay,
It is horrible. We don't even go to the zoos anymore.
Yeah, like you shouldn't go to Walmart. That's the same thing.
That is
because
true.
I mean, if some kind of institution is performing civil rights violations, you shouldn't participate in that institution. But
We're talking about the animals.
and we're also talking in America. America does all these things. It's kind of hard. It kind of like everything's like stuck on the universe. Like you're kind of stuck like flies on flypaper wherever you live. Like Texas is really big. I tried to leave one time. I tried to walk. I walked across Texas. It's really big. It's a really big place. It's really hard to leave your country. But you can. It's possible. But wouldn't it be better to change it from within? You know, it's not top down. It's bottom up. So that's what Bill Nye says. And so you have all these other animals, right? So, like we were talking about that thing, like there used to be so many birds in the sky in America because it was untouched by human hands almost. Just the indigenous peoples, the Indians, which they had their own issues, but they pretty much didn't fuck with the environment. They appreciated what they got. So there wasn't a lot of environmental issues. So that was why America was such a big deal when people found it, because you could just make so much fucking money. The fur trade was huge. The bulbs got wiped out, partly because of the fur trade, right? They just, I don't know, I guess, well, like, what you do when you skin an animal is you just make kind of, like, pretty much like a slit. You know,
And
you
you
like,
pull
slice
it,
around the
you rip
neck,
it
and then you
off.
slice down, and then you pull it off like a blanket. And so what they did was they shot the buffalo, they slit around its neck, they cut the fatty tissue, and then they peeled it all off, and they left the carcass there. So, like, if you think about me doing that to you, like, that would be horrible. Right?
Right.
Like, even if you're already dead,
Yes.
just doing that to you. I believe that's also a crime. It's a crime to do that to people. What do they call it? Like, where you fuck with a dead body? Like, that's illegal.
Yeah.
You know, because there's a certain amount of respect. And I'm already starting to get emotional. I think, are you feeling it too?
A little bit.
A little bit, yeah. Okay. So this is like a different route that we took before. Okay, so, yeah, it's pretty horrible. But we did that, right? There was so many birds in the sky that when there was a flock of seagulls, but no, I'm just being silly. A flock of, say, like grackles or whatever, right? A lot of birds. You know, it would blot out the sun. Kind of like a Battle of Thermopylae, they said, like, our arrow, you know, will blot out the sun. Like, that's a lot of fucking arrows. That's a lot of fucking arrows, okay? That's a lot of fucking birds. Look up. It's nothing. Ever. Like, every once in a while you see a bird. There were so many fishes in the sea that, in the rivers, that you could just take a bucket and you could dump it in and pick it up, and it would just be full. It would be full of life. You know, because life was just really taken off. It was great. And then we come in, you brought up opportunism, right? About humans, like humans, that Tim's wife is just this opportunistic whore that's taking advantage of disadvantaged people. Yes?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so an opportunistic whore, like someone that's bad, could smile in your face. They could say all the right things. But you have to look at the actions that people perform. You have to look at what people actually do. It's, what is it, the Batman? The Batman, when Tom Cruise's wife says to Christian Bale, it's not what you say, it's what you do that defines you, or something. It's something along those lines, right? So like actions dictate whether or not you're a piece of shit, right? So if you have a good track record, like Bernie Sanders, if you have a good track record, you're probably not a piece of shit. But if you have an extraordinarily questionable track record, if the things that you have done in the past are egregious and against all life, you're probably a bad person, okay? So we hold humans in high regard, right? So I was immediately able to communicate all civil rights to humans within maybe a minute, just using humans as an example, right? So civil rights is a thing that people can wrap their mind around. All right, so when you talk about just, you know, like, so are human animals? Humans are animals,
Yes.
right?
We are animals.
And so animals are like us because they have a consciousness?
Yes.
And because they have a consciousness, they have feelings and they have a perception of reality.
Yes. That's
If I put you in a hole and I take a truck and I hold it over you and I drop it, are you going to be scared?
Yep.
Would that probably be one of the most horrifying movie scenes that you could probably experience? Like someone that, inevitable death, a truck has no feelings, has no morality. If it falls, it is going to fall, and that mass is going to spread you out a little bit.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, there's
Okay.
nothing you can do. You know it's coming.
What about if you take a bug and my shoe and I hold it over the bug and I step on it? Do you think that bug feels fear?
Yes.
Okay. What if you just take an ant that's walking along and you flick it? Does it freak the fuck out and start moving a lot fucking faster and trying to get the fuck away from you?
Yes.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
they feel fear.
Yes.
So if you were to disavow your knowledge that animals have a consciousness, like there used to be this widespread thought that like animals didn't have feelings, right?
Right.
So now we know that that is not the case. It is an observable fact that that thing feels fear, right?
Right.
Take a rat. You take a rat and you put it in a cage. In that cage, you have two containers. You have one that has heroin water and you have one that has regular water. 100% of the time, a rat alone in a little cage, cut off from the rest of the social structure, he'll poison and kill himself 100% of the time. Because that rat is basically is hedonistic. So it wants just to feel good right now. It wants to feel. Oh, like me. I'm a hedonist. I want to feel good all the time. Like, why should I feel good? Why? It's nice. So I do certain things so that I feel at least all right. I smoke pot, I drink beer, I smoke cigarettes. I'll interact with people. I'll interact with people I like instead of interacting with people I hate, so it'll make me feel better about myself. Like, that's a hedonist. So this rat in a cage by itself, nothing to talk to, nothing to look at, nothing to do. Hey, when I drink this water, it makes me feel really good. Fuck yeah. I'm going to drink that water, and I'm going to drink it a lot. They die 100% of the time. You take a human, you put it in a cage, you put it in a little box, you give it 2 water sources, I'm pretty sure you would get the same exact experiment, but you can't do that experiment because that's against civil rights. That's fucking illegal. That's torture. That's like having a Jew pick up a rock and move it. That's stupid. Okay. Even when you want to talk about one subject, I don't just talk about one subject. I talk about all subjects, but I'm talking about, I'm using all of these so that you have something to compare it to. You have something like you understand you have an understanding of you. Well, just apply the same principles to an animal. Basic, right? You take that same rat that poisoned itself 100% of the time in a cage committing suicide, pretty much, because it wanted to feel good. That's the message. People want to feel good and they're killing themselves for it, right? Because you have them trapped in a cage.
Right.
Okay. So you take that same rat and you take him out of the cage and you put him in a cage with a lot more animals. There's some fucking, I hate that motherfucker. That guy's a little piece of shit. Whiny little bitch. Always crying about everything. I don't know. So do you think you can still hear me? And do you think the movie, it's been ruined so far? So what I'm pretty much going to say is that to disregard animal rights is to disregard all life except for human life. We do not even hold human life, at least in this country, in high regard. So we're always talking about gay people and black people and poor people. Well, like the true victims of just us existing as a species is animal life. It is animal life. That's why so many species go extinct. You know, that's why the environment is going to shit, is because of human interaction, human influence on the environment. So we probably need to fix that. And I'm not saying we should fix it first, because people are stupid and they're not gonna, a lot of people don't sympathize with animals or identify with animals as something similar to them, or pretty much the same thing, but that, yeah, it is an issue. Animal rights is a fear issue. Okay. Well, there's a lot